Hello and welcome to Barnstaple. This exceptional Tour of Britain enters its final weekend with pretty much everything still up for grabs. We're down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map for a stage which could yet prove to be decisive. Mind you, that's exactly what I said about yesterday too. No Bradley Wiggins on the start line at Welshpool, a stomach bug ending his Tour of Britain, but plenty of British interest out on the road nonetheless. There were two fans' favourites in the break of the day. Christian House at it again, hoovering up more King of the Mountains points, and Rally's Graham Briggs, the first time he's figured on the race. The roads took their toll on the breakaway, on Zach Dempster in particular, and on the race in general. Then it went uphill over Keeble Mountain once, with Tiernan Lock joining Briggs at the front of the race, and twice, this time in the company of Leopold Koenig. They gapped the field and they headed for home.
They're into the finishing funnel now. That's exactly what we expected. So it's Koenig that's going to come up here to take the stage victory. He takes the stage victory. Second over the line is Jonathan Tiernan Lock.
There was a major shake-up in the general classification again. John Tiernan Lock takes over as widely expected, but his gap is only 13 seconds to Lee Howard and 18 seconds to Nathan Haas, who picked up a 4-second bonus on the line. Boy Van Poppel drops to fourth, with Caruso and Jones the only other riders within a minute. Sky's challenge for the overall melted away today. Christian Knees dropping to 1 minute 34 seconds. So that was the story of stage 6 of the Tour of Britain, the Queen stage they called it, and if yesterday was the Queen stage, then today's the King stage or the Prince stage or something. Plenty of climbing again today. John Tiernan Lock, will you reflect on yesterday with satisfaction or slight frustration?
Well, the objective for Endura and for JT was to get the jersey. They've done that. That's one objective done. But I think he would have wanted to get a bit more time between his main competitors. I mean, he's only got 13 seconds to Lee Howard. I mean, Lee Howard's a sprinter.
Yep.
We've got a lot of hotspot sprints coming up. So today it's going to put a little bit of pressure on John Tiernan Lock. He has to attack today.
Absolutely, and it's one of the intrigues, isn't it, Matt, of the Tour of Britain and races like this, that you can have Lee Howard, who is essentially a sprinter, so close in the general classification to John Tiernan Lock, who is a pure climber.
Yeah, I mean, over the last few years, you've had Michael Albertini win this race. You've had Lars Baum, who's a crossman and a time trialist. And of course, Edvald Boasson Hagen, who's a lead-out man and a sprinter himself. So a real good mix. I think this race is just suited to an all-rounder.
Yeah, a bit like you. You're an all-rounder, aren't you?
An all-rounder without a sprint.
But you're doing a couple of jobs on this year's Tour of Britain. You're working with me doing this, and you're also the race controller.
I am indeed, yes. It's a role that's very new to me. I've done the race as a rider, as a manager, and now I've sort of come full circle and I'm race controller. So essentially, in a nutshell, I basically make sure the race gets off on time and runs from A to B safely.
All right, we followed you through your work yesterday. This is what he does.
As well as working with Ned, my main role on the race is that of race controller, and that basically means I need to get the race off on time and safely from stage start to stage finish. Also in the car with me is my wingman, Ron Keeble. Now Ron is so experienced. He's done 9 Tours of Britain and is obviously very, very used to dealing with situations as they happen on the road. From time to time, things can happen. Obviously, a race situation is very, very fluid. So we could have a forward of the race, we could have a road traffic accident. And it's our decision between myself and Ron, and obviously the commissaires and Brian Smith in race control too, to make decisions, the dynamic decisions on what happens to the race, whether we neutralise it or whether we take a diversion. Just past the blue board, and that basically states that the riders are free to feed from vehicles behind the race. So what you find, maybe not so much today, but on the hot days, rods will drop back, domestiques will drop back to the team cars, get bottles, food, take clothes back for the team leaders. So we have X amount of resources. We have National Escort Group motos, we have police motorcycle outriders. So one of the roles of the race controller is to make sure that those resources are deployed, proportionately to ensure that each group on the road can basically get safely to the finish. But Leopold Koenig out sprinting JT at the finish there, and we'll just wait and see if he's done enough to secure the golden jersey.
It may not have the prestigious climbs of stage 6, but the combination of heavy roads and gruelling terrain of Dartmouth will provide another stern challenge for the peloton. Starting in the North Devon town of Barnstaple, the Tour heads south towards the wilds of Dartmoor that provide some great vantage points for spectators to view the race. Off the moor, it's a sprint to the coast and a finish on the quayside in Dartmouth. Well, yesterday, Matt, you very aptly described this stage as crocodile teeth or alligator teeth, so serrated the whole way along. Where do these key climbs come today? How close to the end?
We've got a climb, a second cat climb after about 15 miles today, and then it's just very, very undulating up and down roads. Then we have two first cat climbs midway through the race. It's still very, very hilly in the last three quarters, but then the race does drop off as we head towards sea level, and we get two hotspot sprints very, very close to the finish.
Now, explain why they might be critical, as well as the hotspot sprint straight from the gun.
Well, obviously the hotspot sprint from the gun is going to suit Lee Howard down to the ground. No doubt Orica are going to be are going to tee him up for that sprint. Maybe JT will contest it, but I think he'll save his powder for the climbs themselves. But again, if JT doesn't get rid of Lee Howard, Nathan Haas and co, there's two sprints on the run-in. He's certainly not going to get rid of any other protagonists in the last 15k because it's essentially downhill.
Fascinating stuff. 9 seconds overall up for grabs if someone can win all three of those sprints. Let's find out exactly what goes on the road with Declan Quigley and Rob Hales.
So all set to go at the start of this 173-kilometre 7th stage of Tour of Britain, and the riders face a very, very tough day in the saddle indeed. We've got 3 classified climbs along the way. Second category ascent of South Hill after just over 14 miles. First category climb of Maryvale, just on 56 miles, and Coffinstone comes just over 10 miles later. So it's going to be a tough day for them. There's plenty of other rollers after that, and these riders will certainly know they've been in a bike race at the end of this.
Extremely difficult stage, as you said there, Declan, and a real sting in the tail as well today. But no doubt this man here looking forward to racing on his local roads.
The man from Plymouth and Devon, Jonathan Tiernan-Lock, with the race leader's gold IG jersey, is prominent at the front and looking a little bit nervous and anxious as well. He might, but he'll no doubt be buoyed by the huge support there is along the route, with the roads lined throughout and especially on the hills. They've been coming out since early morning, and Jonathan Tiernan-Lock will not lack for backing. So it's a glorious day for racing, and join us for all the race action after these. Welcome back to Tour of Britain Stage 7 from Barnstaple to Dartmouth. 173 kilometres for the riders, and 3 Yodel intermediate sprints along the way. And this the first of them inside the kilometre point, as the hammer is down in the peloton, still to establish a break. So plenty of riders willing to try and get up the road, and obviously we're likely to see Pete Williams, the man from Node 4 Giordana, who's going to try and see if he can rubber stamp his authority on this competition. Russell Downing up front for Endura, doing a manful job of protecting the interests of the overall race leader, Jonathan Tiernan-Lock. And he's putting on a hell of a race face, and I tell you what, this is an intermediate sprint, but it's a bit of a grind up a hill to get to it.
It is. It's one of the toughest sprints that we've had up to now, and Russell Downing doing a fantastic job there, trying to go clear and take those points. Tiernan-Lock, no chance of him getting any points, but he's trying to take those vital 3-second time bonus away from these two riders here, Van Poppel and Lee Howard. It's Van Poppel from United Healthcare and the Orica Green Edge. Race second place for Lee Howard at the moment.
And boy, Van Poppel runs out of steam a little bit. Looked like Lee Howard was coming over him. These three riders with a little bit of an advantage, and Lee Howard goes for it, and Russell Downing desperate to try and stop Howard from taking that sprint, because of course there are bonus seconds on offer here, so that is a significant moment in the general classification chase.
Well, I think the look on those faces there of those riders shows just how hard that sprint was. Not your normal average sprint, that one. Extremely difficult.
Well, there's confirmation of Lee Howard's 3-second gain on general classification. That means now there's just 10 seconds between himself and Jonathan Tiernan-Locke at the top of the general classification order. Russell Downing second across the line, Boy Van Poppel third, and the bunch streaming through just behind them, with Peter Williams adding another point to his total in this competition.
Yeah, and off the back of that sprint there, that tough section of road there leading into the sprint, it's set up all sorts of trouble here for riders behind, and we've got riders here trying to go clear.
Yeah, that was a sprint, and you would imagine normally on a flat road, but it's really testing terrain for the riders throughout the day today, with 3 classified climbs, but plenty of other lumps in between, and it's going to be really hard on legs that are already tired. On post Sean Kelly on the front, trying to see can they get involved as we come to the start of the first King of the Mountains hill, first classified hill, South Hill, second category ascent.
And this climb comes only a very short distance after that sprint that just preceded, as we see one of the French riders trying to go clear, and Rally GAC also getting in on the action.
Sarah Sojason to the fore, Rally desperately trying to stay in contention and still yet to establish a break. So no riders have managed to get any significant advantage, so the bunch are still pretty motivated to keep it together, as we see Sarah Sojason. And at the back of the field, Mark Cavendish is feeling the pain already. He's having to close gaps right over the around riders, and if it's hot and intense at the front, you can imagine how it feels at the back.
Yeah, it looks like David Lelay there on the front, riding extremely well, going hard. He likes this kind of terrain, but these guys back here, they're not having so much fun.
Absolutely not, as we see Mark DeMar from the United Healthcare team. He's had good legs this week. He's been involved in so much of the action. Ivan Basso, a little look over his shoulders, the man from Liquigas. And they're starting to establish a bit of an advantage here. 2 riders from Euskaltel.
It looks like Urtazan there on the right-hand side from Euskaltel, and it looks like we've got quite a large group just trying to get detached here from the front of the peloton. Not surprising really on this section of road. It is tough, and Basso it is who's trying to force the pace just to get up there to Mark DeMar.
So Jonathan Tiernan-Locke in the IG Gold leader's jersey, ever vigilant and right in the wheels and right at the front of the action as riders gallop towards the top of the hill. Points on offer.
Looks like Lelay there from Sal Soldiers On going on, and Basso trying to chase him down. So now looks like we've got 3 riders going clear, and there's the gold jersey of Tiernan-Locke really starting to move up now on the outside.
David Lelay leads as they come towards the top of this climb. Mark DeMar in his wheel for United Healthcare. Ivan Basso there for Liquigas, and 4th in line at the moment, Jonathan Tiernan-Locke of the Enduro Racing team. Just slides around the side of that superstar Ivan Basso, and as they cross the top of the hill, he manages to take second position over the top. So of limited value, the points, but it shows in what good form Jonathan Tiernan-Locke is. Lelay gets the top points, Mark DeMar in 3rd, but look at that, in 4th place Pablo Urtazan of the Euskaltel team, scoring some important points to get him a little bit closer to Christian House in the Skoda King of the Mountains competition. Okay, join us for the next part after these.
Welcome back. A 5-man breakaway formed off the first climb, and it was an elite group. It contained former Olympic champion Sami Sanchez of Euskaltel Euskadi, his teammate Pablo Urtasun, who currently lies 2nd in the King of the Mountains competition, 2-time Giro d'Italia winner Ivan Basso, big French prospect Jérôme Coppel of Soyo Sojason, and the Stage 5 winner, everybody's favourite Curaçaoan Mark DeMar. The first hour's racing was extremely fast. In fact, they covered over 28 miles. 5 riders managed to join the lead group in West Devon, and we pick up the race with a 10-man breakaway over 3 minutes up on the peloton.
The highest rider on classification at the moment is Coppel at 4:16.
So the peloton hit the climb, just about a kilometre or so behind the leaders up front, and now they will start to feel the pain and feel the... It's been a very busy week. It's been a busy start to the stage. Lots of activity at the get-go. 5 riders up the road and then joined by another 5, and they split, came back together again. So it's been pretty active. At this point now, the break is very much established, and this is the break of the day. But the question is, when will they be caught, and whether any of the riders up front will be able to get involved. Well, Marcin Bialobloci is on a small gear, revving it as best he can. And you would suspect, judging by his physique, that probably steep climbs are not his forte. He's a good hard rouleur, good hard roadman, but perhaps won't be enjoying the steep stuff to quite the same extent.
No, I think this is a good composition, this group. Certainly strong riders, as we can see the two riders up the front, Sanchez, Urtazan, obviously trying to pick up points for this preem here.
And look at the crowds, absolutely incredible how many people have come out onto this Merivale Hill. And this is, I mean, it's Tour de France stuff. Have you ever seen anything like it?
In the UK, not often, but cycling now in the UK is going through the roof, and here is just proof of that. We're certainly seeing some big crowds all the way through this race, but especially today, particularly on this stage down here in the southwest. It is great.
Yeah, and of course they're all out to see how Jonathan Tiernan-Lock is going to get on. Christian House, of course, is the man that's leading the Skoda King of the Mountains competition. The man from Refacondar has a healthy advantage over Pablo Urtazan. So from his point of view, he'll be perhaps a little bit concerned that Urtazan has managed to get into the break.
I'm sure we will see Christian House come to the fore as we see big Mackie Backstead now. He's not in the kind of place where he would like to be. Great day yesterday out in that break, but these climbs he will struggle.
He's had a super week, hasn't he? He's tried to retire. And look at the crowds as the hill winds its way towards the top. Looks like Mark Cavendish is starting to slip back a little bit. Manages to find the motivation to just make his way around that other rider.
Yeah, Michael Hepburn just sliding backwards a little bit. Here we can see Jeremy Hunt, Mark Cavendish's Sky teammate, done an awful lot of work this week. As we see the pressure just being applied on the front here. Garmin Sharp still Enduro Racing to the fore, NetApp. All of these teams have riders up in the top 10. A little bit of wind there, cross tailwind. Again, it's created an awful lot of damage in the race over the last few days. As we can see the back of the peloton here, and Cavendish just starting to lose distance on the riders in front. Jeremy Hunt there just helping him out. It's certainly early to be losing distance and an awful lot of hard ground to make up.
Sanchez just has a little look at the race route.
Yep, he'll have his map there and his race notes, so he'll know exactly what's happening. He'll be running off the computer on his handlebars there, just with the distance that they've covered and ground to cover yet.
And Rob, it's a fascinating battle, isn't it, between a sprinter and a climber. With the time bonuses and the nature of the course, it's coming, you know, it's been to Howard's advantage for most of the week, and now it's coming towards Jonathan Tiernan-Lock with the hills today and tomorrow. And
that's not a pretty sight, is it?
Really, I mean,
not a pretty sight. Sanchez there just cooling him down or giving him a wash, one or the other. I'm not so sure, but it's the kind of sights that we're used to in the Tour de France.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, these guys are at their work and they're taking it all very seriously, and there's these extraordinary things happening to their left and to their right.
Certainly gives the riders a little extra to talk about at the dinner table, and when they're on the massage table with the Soigneur back at the hotel in the evening.
It's not necessarily an image you want to recall, though, is it?
Not particularly. It's not the prettiest of sights, that's for sure. But good work, good tempo here being set by Sanchez for his rider there, Urtazan.
So what's the plan for Tiernan-Lock to try and get more time today? Is it quite simply attack late? You know, how can he shift Lee Howard? Because Howard did a good job of trying to hang on. He was within a minute and a half of him yesterday, or quite a bit less. He
really did. There's a lot of pressure that needs to be applied, I think, to the peloton to try and get rid of Howard. And I don't know if it's pressure that his teammates are able to do.
Oh, here we go. Urtazan goes for the King of the Mountains points. Bernie Sulzberger fancies getting a few points there as well. So first two over the line for the second Skoda King of the Mountains hill of today's stage. So there's confirmation. Pablo Urtazan takes top points at the top of Coffin Stone. ahead of Bernie Sulzberger and Ivan Basso, and that's a 13-point gain for Urtazan in closing the deficit to Christian House. So a little bit of an anxiety there for Christian House in that competition. Superb performance yesterday from Leopold Koenig, who took stage honours. Did a professional job of staying on the wheel of Jonathan Tiernan-Lock in the closing stages. Just did a few turns just to make sure that those two stayed clear, and he had plenty in hand for the final gallop, and took an all-important victory for this squad.
Yeah, I think Tiernan-Lock would certainly have wanted the NetApp riders to come through a little bit more, as we see the peloton just going over the top there now.
And Cav hangs on. It was cracking a little bit halfway up the hill, but they managed to gather it all up, and Cavendish is safely in the peloton towards the back, but secure as they head towards the next King of the Mountains. So the third King of the Mountains hill is Coffinstone, Category 1. And it's a short, sharp shock, 2 kilometres from the start of the King of the Mountains point, 2.5 kilometres for this break of 10 riders, as they still are working very much in unison. Pablo Urtazan will probably be the most motivated of this group, having taken top points at the top of Maryvale, and of course he's narrowed the gap between himself and Christian House in that Skoda King of the Mountains competition, well, significantly at this point. Certainly it'll be getting Christian House's attention in the bunch behind.
Yeah, and Urtazan, let's not forget, he's got a teammate here, and his teammate Samuel Sanchez, he's here on the front just setting pace. The rider's riding fairly steadily. We've got Jan Barter just on the back from NetApp, just easing himself over this climb. Not too much damage being done just yet.
Ronan McLaughlin struggling a little bit perhaps. It's been a tough week for him. Still quite an impressive one for the An Post Sean Kelly rider. Marcin Bielblocki, as we get towards the top of the hill, look at the size of these crowds. Incredible numbers of people out in force at the Tour of Britain this year. Surely the biggest crowds that this race has ever seen. There are very, very few races in the world that would see crowds like these. Tour de France comes to mind, and certainly the crowds here are matching them for size and enthusiasm, as Samuel Sanchez sets an even, steady tempo on the front of the group. Ivan Basso looking comfortable as well. Towards the back, a couple of these riders suffering a little bit with the intensity of this gradient. As I say, it's very much a short, sharp shock of a hill.
Yeah, these guys at the back here just getting detached. They'll certainly want to make sure they get back over and link back on top as we go back to the peloton here. One long line, just shows how fast they're going as they hit the bottom of this climb. Just a couple of minutes behind now.
Yep, and the pace they're going at right now will not be sustained for a whole lot longer. They hit it like a wall.
And these crowds here again, I've been speaking to a couple of the riders, foreign riders, and they've never seen crowds like this other than, as you mentioned, the big tours and that Tour de France. The crowds here, fantastic. The weather certainly helping, but this race and this countryside really bringing them out.
Jerome Koppel for Sarah Sojason, working hard to try and maintain the pace in this group, as Samuel Sanchez certainly is setting a decent tempo. It's a pretty good tempo that he's setting, really, because it's drawing the best out of perhaps the least able climber in this group, which is probably just about what you want to do. Convoy is only as fast as its slowest ship, but the slowest ship is certainly getting a workout. Yeah,
and Sanchez there on the front, former polka dot winner from the Tour de France, Olympic Games gold medalist 4 years ago in Beijing, setting a high pace. Urtazan here on the right hand side of him, his teammate. He's the one who certainly wants to pick up the points. He needs to get in the wheels, really. He's sat out there in the wind, not doing himself too many favours at the moment.
Yeah, surprise really with Sanchez setting the pace. He might as well take the maximum advantage of that, but he slots back in on the wheel of his teammate as the group is stretched into one long line. And Urtazan looking comfortable on the wheel of Samuel Sanchez, as Mark Demar slots in third place, and this group working well together behind. The Enduras continue to set the tempo on the front of the bunch, a fast dwindling bunch on this steep ascent.
Yeah, here we can see Ian Bibby here from Endura Racing, and there's the shot that shows just how steep this climb is and how hard these guys are having to work. And Paul Voss there in second place with his team leader there, Jonathan Tiernan-Lock. Oh my word. Now
Sacha Baron Cohen has an awful lot to answer for, doesn't he? Wow.
Oh, and there's two of them, double trouble. My word.
I wish I was on 5% of the sales of mankinis in the last few years. Riders starting to struggle. Gediminas Bagdonas of the Unpost Sean Kelly team, the Lithuanian national road race champion, and a man who's made a big reputation for himself in continental level racing, but feeling the pain as they head towards the top of this hill. And here we come towards the Skoda King of the Mountains sprint point. Well, it is a sprint point because the gradient has leveled off a little bit as Urtasun takes top points across the top for the second climb in succession, and that won't be great news to Christian House. Okay, join us for the next part after this short break.
Welcome back to a scenic stage 7 of the Tour of Britain, finishing in Dartmouth. The second Yodel sprint of the day took place in Kingsbridge. Crossing the line first, Node 4 Giordano Racing's Marcin Biablocki, ahead of Jacek Mrazko and Mark Demar. Perfect weather conditions, beautiful seaside views and huge crowds greeted the 94 riders. And in the final intermediate sprint of the day, Biablocki was again in front, this time Ivan Basso and Jacek Mrazko following in second and third. We rejoin the action with 9 kilometres remaining and 5 men now clear, including 2 men in the orange of Euskaltel-Euskadi.
As the Euskaltel rider here, Sanchez, gets up to the 3 leaders now.
Oh, and he's absolutely dying. He's looking behind to see can he get some help from Coppell, but Coppell's gone. Meanwhile, up front, Mark Demar. Where is he getting this strength from? Absolutely stunning work from the United Healthcare rider, who's been to the fore all week, as Urtasun looks like he's certainly in good form too. Ivan Basso very much in contention and playing a watching brief, as it's Mark Demar that does all the damage on the front of the break. Those remaining riders are going to fall back into the clutches of this group as Jonathan Tiernan-Locke takes it up at the front.
Yep, and there's a handful of riders just starting to come across, but I cannot see Lee Howard. I do not see an Orica green edge jersey there.
So Nathan Haas has managed to get there. Nathan Haas, of course, lying in third place and just 18 seconds behind. So this is the select group of GC contenders that Jonathan Tiernan-Locke has managed to gather clear of the bunch as the break up front are battling for stage honours.
Sanchez is moving forward now. He's gone off the front, just starting to attack over the top, create some damage.
I think he's just caught at the back a little bit and, you know, maybe done a hard turn just before that, but he's certainly recovered well. He's dug in a big way as the digs are coming too from this group behind. 2 Source Ojason riders represented, Garmin, Liquigas and of course Endura in the form of Jonathan Tiernan-Locke, who's starting to show the pain on his face.
Yeah, Basso here just starting to crouch down on the descent here, this short, sharp descent, just trying to stay with these 3 riders.
Now the gap inside a minute now with 7.5 kilometres to go. It's hard to imagine that this group behind, but they've relatively fresh legs. They haven't been chasing. They've been sitting in the wheels all day. And now these riders up front who've been going up and over and really laying down the maximum power they could for the length of time they're out there. Now they're starting to feel it, but will they be able to hang on? Just 50 seconds now between them and the race leaders behind.
Yep, 16%, that sign there for this descent. Sharp, technical descent through the shadows there, and all 4 riders so far have made it through as we just go back to the group chasing them.
And the group up front of the chasing group, Jonathan Tiernan-Locke goes to the front again. Caruso onto his wheel like a shot. Nathan Haas is never far from Jonathan Tiernan-Locke, but look at that for a picture of concentration and intensity, and he's focused on only one thing, and that's going for it. And it's great to see. It's fascinating to see a yellow jersey not content just to sit in the wheels of the other riders, but trying to make the pace because he knows he's got to try and distance himself from Lee Howard.
Coppell here, the French rider, trying to go across now. He's jumped across to the 4 leaders to join the two Spaniards from Euskaltel.
That's great effort from Coppell, finished in the top 15 in the Tour de France a few years ago, and also third in the under-23 competition at the Tour de France. Hasn't really made it as a big stage race contender, more of a time trial rider, and this not really your average time trial course. So it's going to be a tough ask for him to hang on with these other riders.
David Clark there, number 22. Node 4 Giordano has made this group. Who else is there? Looks like there's a GB jersey. That's Josh Edmondson. I'm pretty sure that that's Josh, the rider who really did come to the fore in yesterday's stage in the final few kilometres to go clear and try and go across to the two riders.
Euskaltel, sorry, Robert, have a great opportunity here. They've two riders up there, and it looks as if Urtasun has pretty strong legs.
But I tell you who has got strong legs at the moment, that's that rider we're looking at here, really tapping out a tempo. He doesn't look fatigued whatsoever at the moment. The cadence that he's holding as we go back yet again to these four riders, still 55 seconds with 6 kilometres to go. Pretty sure that the winner of today's stage is going to come from one of four of these as Sanchez takes up the pace on the front.
And Jonathan Tiernan-Lock looked behind, and he had Damiano Caruso on his wheel. He's 23 seconds behind on general classification, and Tiernan-Lock said, any chance of a dig out? And he got a shake of the head. Caruso is really suffering there.
He is gritting his teeth there. It's not a choice of, I don't want to ride it, so I can't, as we see that style there of Dave Clark on the back here, number 22, Node 4 Giordano rider. Great riding by him. He certainly enjoys these kind of roads.
They've pulled the team cars from the break out, perhaps a little earlier in terms of distance, as you might expect, but team cars are all out of it, so it's a match race between these four riders up front and the expanding group of general classification contenders led by Jonathan Tiernan-Lock. A few riders have managed to clip across to it. There's very few riders doing any work. Indeed, there's really only Tiernan-Lock that's left to him to try and see what he can do. Less about chasing these riders and more about putting as much distance as he possibly can between himself and Lee Howard.
And the rider who, if he wants to win the stage, needs to apply pressure on the uphill, and that was Basso, as we see Marcin Białobrocki being brought back from the remnants of that original break as Josh Edmondson goes on the attack. Wow, Josh Edmondson, the young GB rider, pushing forward now.
Oh, what a fantastic performance by Josh Edmondson, 2 days in a row. He's a young rider, but clearly has wonderful powers of recovery. And Edmondson has managed to go clear of Jonathan Tiernan-Lock. Tiernan-Lock won't be too concerned about Josh Edmondson. He's not really a contender overall.
No, he's at 6 minutes 15 in 15th place. It's a good move for him. He's just going for the stages. Ivan Basso, this is what he needs to do. If he wants to take this stage, he needs to go on the hills.
Basso
he's got rid of his main competitor now, I think, in Sanchez, who's just starting to lose ground.
Good news for Basso. Samuel Sanchez has a decent turn of pace at the conclusion of any stage, so he'd definitely like to put some distance between himself and Basso. But Urtasun has looked very, very strong. Absolutely no difficulty in responding to that attack from Ivan Basso. And as he goes to the front, has a little look behind as if to say, well, I don't mind if Samuel Sanchez comes back to us. So you suspect that as Mark Demar attempts to get back into contention, suspect that Ivan Basso is really going to have to take it up himself.
He is. I think that Euskaltel, though, Urtasun does need to push on, because I think Sanchez, his day's over now. But I think the danger man now is that Mark Demar, after the stage that he won into Stoke. He is the danger man.
Quick tribute for Josh Edmondson. He's got a narrow advantage over the Jersey group, but so impressive. And clearly a man for the future. This British cycling team, which was a late addition to the list of riders, and they're certainly showing that they were well worth their invitation.
Most definitely. As Mark Demar, he's made contact now with the two leaders, Basso and Urtasun. Basso there, he's not going to contribute on the flat. He's going to wait for this last climb that's going to come up in the next couple of kilometres or so as Mark Demar puts in the attack.
Sees a couple of bike lengths between himself and Urtasun and decides to go for it, but that looks as if it's relatively comfortably marshalled by Urtasun.
4 kilometres to go now as Edmondson, he realises that his hope for glory is slightly coming to an end now as this group comes up to him. Not surprising, the man bringing him back is Tiernan-Lock. He's not concerned about riders ahead of him. These three riders aren't going to be up there for IG Markets general classification. He's not interested with the stage. He's interested in pushing forward and taking more time out of the guys behind him. Lee Howard from Orica Greenedge is that rider.
I'll tell you what, the stage is on, because they're inside half a minute. 28 seconds was the last time check we got there a few moments ago. And you know, if these riders continue to finesse ahead of them, as they seem to be a little bit too cagey. Mark Demar is desperately trying to get clear of Ivan Basso.
Yeah, Basso, the best climber from this group, but probably the less explosive, the least of the three riders here with the explosive ability. Having said that, he's the one who's put the move in.
Ivan Basso knows he has to try and get clear of Mark Demar. Urtazan responds. Will they manage to head as we see the group behind? Jonathan Tiernan-Lock now sitting on the wheel of Nathan Haas, as Bernie Sulzberger has come back from the break. The remaining stragglers from that 10-man break are mopped up by the Jersey group, and they desperately try to stay in contention. Josh Edmondson has been controlled at this point. Demar, Urtazan and Ivan Basso up front. Demar, they're leaving on the front, and you suspect that they need to keep riding if they're going to hold off Jonathan Tiernan-Lock et al.
They do need to keep riding. They can't afford to start playing cat and mouse just yet. As we see Netap trying to go clear again. Moving on, and it's the guy in that gold jersey taking up the chase yet again. Tiernan-Lock and Sanchez. He's starting to pull forward again and regain contact with these three riders. That is good news for Sanchez.
Great news for Sanchez, great news indeed for Urtazan as well. And it's a very, very fast downhill, and well, certainly the man with the biggest reputation as a descender in this group is Samuel Sanchez. He goes to the front.
Yep, good move there by Sanchez. It's all downhill now, pretty much all downhill and very technical. That will suit him, that will suit his style, himself and Demar.
Now the Jersey group are Group 3 on the road and 51 seconds in arrears, so significant advantage indeed between the break and the Jersey. So I think we're getting the time check between the second group and the third group at that point. Okay, 51 seconds between the Jersey and the riders up front.
Yellow jersey group just going through that 3 kilometre mark there now. 51 seconds the advantage the four riders have over them. This one lone chaser from Netap trying to go clear.
2K from the finish as Netap once more involved in the action, as indeed they were yesterday with Leopold Koenig. And up front, it's the meat in the Euskaltel sandwich are Ivan Basso and Mark Demar. And Sanchez and Urtazan up front have the tactical advantage. 1.7 kilometers from the finish, heading down this hill. The hot money would be on Sanchez, but it looks as if he's going to have to lead it out.
Yeah, he's doing an awful lot of work on the front. Still 1.6 kilometers to go.
As they sweep down the hill. And this is a perfect opportunity, you would imagine, for someone like Sammy Sanchez. Not particularly technical. They do have a little bit of a bend to the left before they make that final right-hander. The final right-hander is testing and challenging. And then it is right about 350, 400 meters to the finish from there. So it's going to be a long lead out, difficult lead out, unless a rider managed to get a little bit of a gap. You'd imagine they'll finesse a little bit more as we see them sweeping through this left-hander and piling down towards the final right-hand bend. It's Samuel Sanchez on the front, Mark Demar for United Healthcare in second position. Urtazan, Sanchez, Euskaltel teammate in third place, and Ivan Basso at the back of the group, who would be least favourite of these riders, as Mark Demar goes for it. As Sanchez, they leave on the front, so Mark Demar sweeping around to try and see who's coming. Sanchez looks as if here comes Mark Demar going for it. He leads it out, and Sanchez gives a big cheer for Urtazan as he shouts him on. He's trying to lead out his teammate. Urtazan looks like he's got good legs. Who's going to get it? Will it be Urtazan? Gets it, gets his hands in the air by the narrowest of margins from Mark Demar, with Ivan Basso in third place, and Samuel Sanchez celebrates after setting it up beautifully. He had huge confidence in his teammates' sprint, and it was well justified. Wonderful teammates work from the Euskaltel team, who come out with the Tour of Britain stage victory in Dartmouth. As we see the group behind the lone Netap rider, and looking further back, Jonathan Tiernan-Lock has managed to put significant distance between himself and Lee Howard, so it's his jersey will be retained. As we see Nathan Haas leads out. No bonus seconds left for him.
Koenig there, number 105.
Leopold Koenig for the second day in a row is in contention, but not quite managing to get to the break. Good news for Jonathan Tiernan-Lock. Blow of the cheeks as he comes across the line. 50 seconds in arrears and comfortably in the IG Gold jersey for another day. So wonderful performance from all riders in the break as Pablo Urtazan comes up with stage honours and accepts the congratulations of his teammates.
Basque sunshine on the English Riviera, Dartmouth cheering home Pablo Urtasun, led out by Sammy Sanchez and out sprinting Marc Demar. A blue chip finale in orange. Those men then, the 1-2, with Ivan Basso and Sammy Sanchez third and fourth. A gap to yesterday's winner Leopold Koenig. Then the 9-man GC group led home by Nathan Haas with Tiernan-Lock in 8th and Damiano Caruso in 10th. But the local hero was happy with his ride.
The boys were incredible today. I mean, we lost Zach yesterday and I thought it would make things more difficult. You know, we had a bit of help from other teams, but the guys just rode incredible all day on the front. You know, great job, and really happy to increase my lead, and hopefully we can carry that through tomorrow as well.
A couple of names fell out of contention today. Lee Howard lost 1 minute and 8 seconds to Tiernan-Lock and drops to 4th. Boy van Poppel popped 2:23, his deficit now to the leader. Only 3 men are realistically in contention, you might think, with 1 stage remaining. Damiano Caruso is 3rd at 23 seconds. Nathan Haas at 18 seconds is 2nd. But they'll have to shake off the determined John Tiernan-Lock, who's just 1 stage now from overall victory. Pablo Urtasun, who was a motor in the middle of that strong 10-man break, read the final sprint to perfection and took the stage win, which makes it all worthwhile for the team from the Basque Country. Christian House took a day off today, which was unlike him, frankly, and while Urtasun took huge chunks back on him today, he still leads by 19 points and will certainly close out the Skoda King of the Mountains tomorrow, despite the 26 points available on the road. Still a node for Giordana 1-2-3 in the Yodel Sprints classification. Pete Williams is the beneficiary of his team's support. His lead, 7 points to Marcin Biablocki. A second day in gold then for John Tiernan-Lock. The 2 lumpy stages have handed him the lead and seen it extended today by a further 5 seconds after he dispensed with Lee Howard. He knows he's closing in on the first homegrown Tour of Britain win since Chris Lillywhite in 1993. Well, that really was a fantastic stage here into Dartmouth. The sun is still out, the crowds are still here. Good evening, everybody. And Zach Dempster from Endura is here. Zach, what a horrid time you had of it yesterday hitting the deck. How are you?
Yeah, I guess it's just the life of a bike rider.
Yep.
Still better than a real job, so although it was a long night in hospital last night, it's life.
Concussed, bits and pieces missing out of your elbow, and someone rode over your hand as well.
Yeah, I went through the war a bit yesterday in Wales. I can't remember everything. I can't remember much of the crash accident. I just remember waking up a bit confused on the road and then someone running over my hand. So, it's disappointing to be out of the race now, especially with the way we've ridden thus far. But,
well, listen, Zach, I mean, tell me about John Tiernan-Lock. We saw it in the early season, Tour du Haut-Var, Tour de Med, but here he's coming, his home race, he's pretty much sewn it up, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's the king of Devon, isn't he? I mean, there's no questions to be asked about how his talent or his capabilities, and I think he showed a glimmer of his potential today, and he's a good friend of mine. I'm really looking forward to seeing him go from strength to strength, and tomorrow he can win the race. Tour of Britain, one of the first British riders to do so, so something special in the making tomorrow, and I think the British public should be proud.
Matt, have we jumped too early on this as you want it?
Well, as Zach's testament to anything can happen in a bike race, and I believe when Zach laid it down, we're on a straight bit of road, and all it takes is to hit a small stone and you're down. So, but hopefully, JT has earned his luck. But yeah, barring accidents, I've got Nathan Haas just a few seconds behind. We don't know what Nathan's going to try, but I think the depth in strength in Endura, even without Zach on board, that those guys are going to ride themselves into the ground tomorrow if they need to. And I think we'll see JT from Devon crowned Tour of Britain winner.
Nathan Haas, an Aussie, very briefly, can he do much about it? We don't know much about him.
Definitely, Nathan's got as much raw talent as what JT has. He's made the equivalent step from jumping from the Tour Series or the Premier Calendar in Australia, the equivalent events, to the Pro Tour with Garmin this year. So if anyone can do it, I think he's going to give him a run for his money, but
all right.
I don't reckon.
Okay, thanks very much, Zach, and well done. Heal well. Matt, thanks very much indeed. We'll be back for the last stage of the Tour of Britain from Reigate to Guildford tomorrow. Live coverage at the slightly later time of 2:30. Please don't miss it.